Are even the brightest stars safe from life's darkest turns? From Hollywood icons to royalty, no one is immune to the tragic grip of fate. Join us as we uncover the haunting tales of celebrities whose lives were cut short in devastating car crashes, stories that still echo with heartbreak and unanswered questions today. It was September 30th, 1955, and actor James Dean was driving his beloved Porsche 550 Spider to Salinas, California, where he would participate in a car race. At 24 years old, James's star was on the rise. He was young, talented, and beautiful, with an aura of mystery and rebellion that enchanted the public. But James Dean also loved racing, a newfound love that soon intersected tragically with his life and career. Born in Marion, Indiana, James Byron Dean grew up with a restless spirit and a determination to make his mark in the world. He studied drama at UCLA and quickly distinguished himself as a remarkable talent. Filmmakers were drawn to his talent and intensity, which resulted in his breakthrough performance in Elia Kazan's East of Eden. He was one of the most promising actors of his generation and would have possibly become one of the world's greatest actors. But it was not for his passion for speed and danger. By late September 1995, James Dean had just finished shooting a film named Giant and was eager to return to motorsport. He allegedly dreamed of competing in the Indianapolis 500 race in the future. His recent financial success from East of Eden had allowed him to invest in his passion by purchasing a Triumph Tiger motorcycle and a Porsche 356 Speedster. James later traded the Porsche 356 for a faster, better car, a convertible Porsche 550 Spider, which he lovingly called Little Bastard, a name that would remain in history. On September 30th, 1955, James Dean was at Competition Motors in Hollywood alongside his Porsche mechanic, Rudy Wutherich. They intended to get the Little Bastard ready for the Salinas race. At first, Dean planned to tow the Porsche behind a station wagon the whole way to the race. But Wutherich suggested that Dean drive the Spider to Salinas to get more miles and experience under his new car. After Dean gave his okay, Wutherich, Warner Brothers stunt driver Bill Hickman, and photographer Stanford H. Roth left Hollywood and headed north on US Route 99, stopping briefly for petrol. At around 3:30 p.m. that day, Dean was stopped by the California Highway Patrol south of Bakersfield, where he was cited for speeding at 65 miles per hour in a 55 miles per hour. The group headed west on SR 166 SR 33 towards Blackwell's Corner via a well-known route to sports car drivers. Once there, they met with other drivers and departed Blackwell's Corner at 5:15 p.m., heading west on US Route 466 towards Salinas. It was around 5:45 p.m., and James Dean and Rudy Wutherich were driving westward. Their companions were far behind. The incident happened near the junction of what was then known as US Route 466, now State Route 46, and State Route 41. As James Dean drove towards the west, another car, a 1950 Ford Tudor driven by a 23-year-old called Donald Turnipseed, was heading east. When Turnipseed made a left turn onto SR 41, he crossed directly into the path of James Dean's speeding Porsche, Little Bastard. Dean had just enough time to realize what was going to happen. As such, he attempted a racing maneuver to avoid impact, but it was too late. The two cars collided almost head-on. Little Bastard cartwheeled through the air before landing in a gully beside the road. When authorities arrived, James Dean was extricated from the wreckage. He was unconscious and severely injured. His left foot was crushed between the clutch and brake pedals. He had a broken neck, crushed legs, and multiple fractures and lacerations. Wutherich had been thrown from the car, but he was still conscious, suffering from a fractured jaw, hip, and other injuries. The driver of the Ford, Donald Turnipseed, sustained only minor injuries. James Dean was transported to the Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital, where at 6:20 p.m. on September 30th, 1955, James Dean was pronounced dead on arrival. An inquest held on October 11th, 1955, concluded that Dean's death was accidental, and Turnipseed was not found guilty of any wrongdoing. However, the accident would haunt Turnipseed for the rest of his life, and he rarely spoke publicly about it. The news of James Dean's death shocked the world and Hollywood. His most famous movie, Rebel Without a Cause, was released nearly a month after Dean died in a car accident. The film immortalized the actor and helped paint the picture of a tragic hero gone too soon. By June of 1967, Jayne Mansfield's star had begun to lose some of its power, but the actress was still famous for her bombshell appearance and willingness to play provocative parts in Hollywood movies. Jayne never got the chance to reclaim her place in the spotlight. On June 29, 1967, the actress died in a tragic accident, an accident still shrouded in mystery. Fact or fiction, the story of Jayne Mansfield's passing became the stuff of urban legends. Jayne Mansfield was born Vera Jane Palmer on April 19, 1933, in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. She had always dreamt of being famous, and her dreams became a reality. At the age of 17, Jayne married Paul Mansfield. The couple later relocated to Hollywood, where Jayne pursued her acting career. Mansfield was a smart woman. She quickly realized she could create a daring image and capture the public's attention. As such, she became one of the first Playboy bunnies. She stood out from her peers when she was named Playboy's Playmate of the Month in February 1955. Whether it was exposing her breasts in public or being the first actress to be filmed nude on screen in the 1963 movie Promises, Promises, Mansfield was well known for her provocative stunts. She had a pink house, multiple chihuahuas, and a rivalry with Hollywood's other blonde bombshell, Marilyn Monroe. However, when Monroe died in 1962, Jayne Mansfield was deeply affected. "Maybe I'll be next," she ominously remarked, a prediction that would prove eerily accurate. It was after midnight on June 29, 1967. Jayne had finished a performance at a nightclub in Biloxi, Mississippi, and began a long drive to New Orleans for a television appearance. Since Hollywood's idea of beauty had shifted from busty blondes to petite beauties, Jayne's career now entailed primarily nightclub performances and small appearances, requiring her to travel frequently. That night, she traveled to New Orleans with her boyfriend Sam Brody and their driver Ronnie Harrison. 3 of her children were sleeping in the back seat of the 1966 Buick Electra 225. Jayne's 4 chihuahuas were also in the car. They traveled along the beach road, passing through towns like Biloxi, Gulfport, and Pass Christian, basking in the warm summer night air. After crossing the high-rise Henderson Point Bridge and the Bay St. Louis Bridge, they made a brief stop for a pit stop at the White Kitchen, a well-known 24-hour landmark near the Mississippi-Louisiana state line. However, after this stop, the journey turned dark along Highway 90. A thick mist began to settle over the swampy marshlands, obscuring visibility and adding to the danger of the winding road. Things got more dangerous as the Buick sped through the foggy early morning hours. A slow-moving mosquito-fogging truck made visibility even more difficult. Its insecticide spray mixed with the natural mist produced a thick, blinding fog. As such, Jayne, her boyfriend Sam, and their driver Ronnie couldn't see the 18-wheeler driving slowly ahead of them on the dim, curving road. The Buick, traveling at an estimated speed of 80 miles per hour, did not see the truck in time to avoid a collision. The impact was catastrophic. The Buick slammed full force into the back of the 18-wheeler, then it slid under its back. As a result, its roof was sheared off. The front of the Buick was almost destroyed. Jayne Mansfield, Sam Brody, and Ronnie Harrison, all 3 adults in the front seat, were killed instantly. Jayne Mansfield was thrown from the vehicle, her body landing on the shoulder of the road. The rumors began almost instantly. When Jayne was thrown from the car, her blonde wig was left hanging from the corner of the shattered windshield. Photographs of the accident were published in the newspapers, and upon seeing a mass of blonde hair, people began speculating that Jayne Mansfield had been decapitated. Nevertheless, the coroner who conducted the autopsy reported that although Jayne's head had sustained serious trauma, including what may be called scalping, with portions of her skull exposed, it was not severed. Mansfield, Brody, and Harrison were all pronounced at the scene. The tragic and gruesome nature of Jayne Mansfield's death inspired a lot of rumors and speculations. Mansfield's past connection with the founder of the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey, was the subject of one particularly persistent story. According to this rumor, LaVey cursed Brody, Jayne's boyfriend at the time, to die in a car accident. This legend gained widespread traction, especially when the 2017 documentary Mansfield 6667 was released. The accident had a huge impact on car safety. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration mandated the installation of underride guards on semi-truck trailers due to the way the Buick slid under the truck, which sheared off the top of the car and caused Jayne's head injury. These safety bars, designed to prevent vehicles from going underneath trailers during a rear-end collision, became known as Mansfield bars in the actress's memory. November 30th, 2013, started pleasantly for Paul Walker. The 40-year-old actor, most famous for his role in the beloved Fast and Furious franchise, was spending his day with his mother and his 15-year-old daughter, Meadow. The three were chatting about buying a Christmas tree when Paul received a message, suddenly reminded of an event he needed to attend. He left in a hurry, completely unaware of the tragic fate that awaited him, a fate that would soon shock the world. Paul Walker, born Paul William Walker IV on September 12, 1973, in Glendale, California, was destined for the spotlight from an early age. With a mother who worked as a model and a father who was a former amateur boxer, Paul was immersed in entertainment from a young age, setting the stage for his future as a beloved Hollywood star. Paul's career began at the age of 2 with a Pampers commercial, and he went on to have minor roles in television shows like Highway to Heaven and Charles in Charge while in school. His career took off in the late 1990s, appearing in films such as Pleasantville and She's All That. However, his performance as Brian O'Connor, an undercover cop in The Fast and the Furious, which came out in 2001, rocketed him to fame and established his place in Hollywood. Throughout his acting career, Paul Walker was known for his passion for cars and racing and his dedication to charity work. A combination of those three passions brought his early demise on November 30th, 2013. That day, he attended a charity event organized by his non-profit, Reach Out Worldwide. The event was held at a high-performance car shop owned by Paul and his friend Roger Rodas, a former race car driver who also managed Walker's finances. After the event, Paul and Roger decided to go for a ride in a 2005 Porsche Carrera GT, a high-speed sports car that was difficult to handle. It was around 3:30 p.m. Paul and Roger had just left the event. Roger was behind the wheel, and Paul was in the passenger seat. The Porsche had an estimated speed of 100 miles per hour. That's when Roger lost control of the car. The Porsche hit a curb, a tree, and a light post, and struck another tree. Then, it burst into flames. Those attending the charity, employees and friends alike, came running, but were met with a devastating sight. The car was engulfed in fire, and their attempts to rescue Paul and Roger proved futile. Roger's young son also witnessed the catastrophic accident. Both males were pronounced dead at the scene. Paul Walker died from a combination of severe traumatic injuries and burns. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department ultimately ruled that the car's speed and the tire's age were the main factors in the crash. Their examination revealed that the vehicle was traveling at speeds ranging from 80 to 100 miles per hour when it lost control, and there were no signs of drugs or alcohol in either man. The whole world found out about the accident within mere hours. The tragic event sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Fans and colleagues mourned the loss of Paul Walker, who was well liked and admired. Paul's daughter, Meadow, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Porsche, claiming that design flaws in the Carrera GT caused her father's death. While Porsche argued that the car had been abused and altered, both sides eventually settled the lawsuit under confidential terms in 2015. Paul Walker died while filming Furious 7, forcing the production to halt while the producers asked his family how to proceed. His brother Cody Walker came in to help finish the remaining scenes, using CGI to honor Walker's memory on screen. The crash scene in Santa Clarita became a makeshift monument, with fans worldwide leaving flowers, letters, and mementos in memory of the late actor. Bessie Smith, one of the most influential figures of the jazz age, was a force to be reckoned with. She was known as the Empress of the Blues and was revered for her powerful voice and emotional depth. But when her life was cut short in a terrifying car crash, rumors and controversy surrounding her death started swirling. Bessie Smith was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, on April 15, 1894. She came from a very low-income family. Bessie and her 6 siblings were orphaned from an early age and left to fend for themselves. As such, Bessie took to performing on street corners for pennies. She was a talented singer and dancer. Later, she joined a traveling troupe that featured another blues legend, Ma Rainey, who helped Bessie develop a stage persona. By the 1920s, Bessie's career had taken off. Her soulful voice captivated audiences. She signed with Columbia Record in 1923 and became her era's most popular female blues singer. But when the Great Depression took hold of the United States, Bessie's popularity began to wane. As such, she took up smaller performances in clubs and theaters nationwide, which required her to travel frequently. It was during one of these travels that Bessie Smith's life came to an abrupt end. Bessie and her lover, Richard Morgan, traveled on U.S. Route 61 between Memphis, Tennessee and Clarksdale, Mississippi on September 26, 1937. It was nearly 2 a.m. Richard was driving. There was a slow-moving truck just ahead of them. Richard attempted to maneuver around the car, but he misjudged the truck's speed. This misjudgment resulted in a high-speed side-impact collision. The roof of their vehicle was torn off, and Bessie, who was seated in the passenger seat, sustained horrible injuries. Her right arm was nearly severed at the elbow, and she had extensive crush injuries on the right side of her body. Richard Morgan was unscathed, but Bessie lay critically injured in the middle of the road. That's how the first person on the scene, a surgeon named Hugh Smith, found her. He quickly realized Bessie required immediate medical attention. He stabilized her as best he could, dressing her injured arm with a clean handkerchief, while his colleague proceeded to call an ambulance. Tragedy almost struck again when another car rushing towards the scene collided with Dr. Smith's parked vehicle, nearly missing Bessie Smith. Eventually, as Bessie's state deteriorated, 2 ambulances arrived, one from a black hospital and one from a white hospital. Because of the segregation laws of the Deep South, Smith was taken to Clarksdale's G.T. Thomas Afro-American Hospital. Her arm had to be amputated, but Bessie Smith never regained consciousness. She succumbed to her injuries that morning. That's when rumors started swirling. Some people claimed Bessie died after being denied admission to a whites-only hospital. Jazz writer John Hammond perpetuated this myth in a 1937 Downbeat magazine piece, eventually laying the foundation for Edward Albee's 1959 play, The Death of Bessie Smith. Dr. Hugh Smith, who treated her on the site, dismissed the claim, noting that no ambulance in that area would have considered transporting an African-American patient to a whites-only hospital at the time. Bessie Smith was buried in Philadelphia on October 4, 1937. Thousands of mourners came to pay their respects to the Empress of the Blues. Sadly, her grave remained unmarked for decades. During those years, her estranged husband, Jack G., thwarted efforts to erect a headstone. In 1970, a tombstone was finally placed on Bessie's grave, funded by singer Janis Joplin and Juanita Green, a friend of Bessie's. Before becoming Princess Grace of Monaco, she was Grace Kelly, a hugely successful Hollywood actress revered for her beauty and style. Grace's ascension from Hollywood star to royalty fascinated the world. When her life tragically ended on September 14, 1982, the whole world mourned and waited for the true details of her death to surface. Grace Patricia Kelly was born on November 12, 1929. She has always been interested in the arts and aspired to be an actress. After high school, she relocated to New York City to pursue her ambition. 2 years later, she was cast alongside Hollywood legends Clark Gable and Ava Gardner in a movie. Soon after, she gained the attention of Alfred Hitchcock, who featured her in 3 of his most famous films, solidifying her reputation as one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Kelly met Prince Rainier III of Monaco while filming The Swan in 1955. At 25, she played the role of a princess on screen and soon became one in real life. Their union was the stuff of fairy tales, capturing the imaginations of admirers worldwide. Kelly left Hollywood in April 1956 to marry Prince Rainier and become Princess Grace of Monaco. From then on, she dedicated her life to her royal duties and raising their 3 children. It was September 13, 1982, Princess Grace and her 17-year-old daughter, Princess Stephanie, traveled to Monaco from the family's country home in Roque-Aigle, France. That morning, Grace dismissed her chauffeur and decided to drive herself because the car was filled with dresses and boxes. But as they drove their Rover 3500 down the winding roads of the Côte d'Azur, Grace briefly lost consciousness. In reality, she had just suffered from what doctors would later call a minor cerebral vascular incident, a stroke-like attack. As such, Grace lost control of the vehicle. She missed a curve and veered off the road, plunging about 100 feet down a mountainside. The car tumbled through the air, crashing through pine branches and rocks before landing in the garden of a house below. Stephanie survived with only a hairline fracture in her vertebrae, but Grace's injuries were significantly more severe. She was immediately taken to the hospital and remained in a coma for 24 hours before being declared brain dead. On September 14th, her husband, Prince Rainier III, made the heartbreaking choice to remove her from life support. Following her death, some claimed that Stephanie, who was underage and unlicensed, had been driving that day, or that mother and daughter were arguing beforehand. Stephanie has denied these allegations, claiming that she was not moving and merely fled the vehicle from the driver's side due to the passenger door being fully smashed. On September 18, 1982, almost 100 million people watched Grace Kelly's funeral. Heads of state, celebrities and royals attended the ceremony, which took place in the same church where she had her fairy tale wedding in 1956.